Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. And I'm here with Ruby. Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Annie. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here. So, why don't you kind of take us back to sort of the beginning for you, like your first drink, or where did it all start?
So I guess the first drink was in high school. I had a drink. Let's see, there was four of us girls, and I think they stole some alcohol from their parents. All I remember is I was really sick and I did not like it. So I actually didn't really drink alcohol. I wasn't a heavy drinker in high school or college. I was always called the lightweight, and I could only have like a half a glass of something. And so yeah, alcohol wasn't necessarily a problem for me until I started working in the wine industry about 20 years ago. So that's kind of where I grew up, though, in the wine country, and my stepdad is a winemaker. So wine was kind of like its own thing. It was revered, and it was something that you had at dinner every night. It was kind of requirement and part of just living in this area. So yeah, that's my beginning.
So then, when you went to work in the wine industry, what did that look like? What was your job?
I worked in marketing and sales as well as the finance. So I reported wine and sold wine, worked in web stores. So had to help people to buy the wine. Sorry. I'm nervous. I realize I'm nervous now.
That's okay. Don't worry. Totally. That's fine. So, yeah. So what about that kind of triggered your own drinking, do you think?
It just became something that I started doing every day. It became so ingrained with my identity, every part of my life, friends, coworkers, everything involved wine. Every part of everything, including I'm a single mother, but dealing with all my other parents' friends, and we would have play dates that we would drink champagne, or so it started becoming just ingrained in every single part of my life. So it was very difficult for me to try to distance myself from that. Yeah.
For sure. And so at that time, did you have any experience of feeling like, I'm not really liking how much I'm drinking, or was it just everything was pretty normal, pretty kosher?
I didn't think about how much I was drinking at all. And I didn't even really know about alcoholism, or even, it wasn't on my spectrum of what drinking is for me. I thought an alcoholic or someone that drank to excess was like a bum on the street or something. I had my job, everything was fine, so I didn't think anything about it. But my first addiction was food, and I actually gained a lot of weight, so much so that I decided my solution was to have bariatric surgery. So that's actually when I started to abuse alcohol, was after that. I didn't realize that people that have bariatric surgery or weight loss surgery are very susceptible to abusing alcohol. And that's really when all of a sudden my tolerance was up, the amount I was drinking increased drastically and rapidly, very rapidly. And that's kind of when I realized I definitely had a problem. But it took many, many, many years for me to really try to even get help, Yeah.
So with that surgery, is there any logical reasons why that happens that were explained to you, or how did you find out that is a complication?
I found out just by actually kind of the first drink afterwards, it affected me so much more. The euphoria feeling was kind of instant, but then it went away really quickly. So instead of me having one glass of wine that would last an hour, I could, it would just be minutes, and then you would want another drink to have that same euphoria feeling. Very much just sped up. So there must be some sort of science behind it as well. But I just knew from experience.
It just felt that way. And were you allowed to drink right away, or was it one of those things where they're like, kind of give you, I know for me, when I was on certain medications like antidepressants, the bottle said don't drink, but the doctor was like, oh, those are just guidelines. It's not really something you have to worry about. So the message I was getting from the doctor was very different than the message I was getting from the medicine.
Yeah, that's similar. They recommend that you don't drink alcohol or don't drink at all. But yeah, it felt like it was more of a, well, we recommend, but it wasn't really explained to me the alcoholism component of having surgery. Yeah, so I didn't really follow that guideline. I actually said, hey, I work in the wine industry. I'm going to still continue to drink wine. And they're like, okay, just, they actually did kind of say it's okay, but they don't recommend it. But I think when your stomach is so small, you can have liquids, and so that was also, it was like a treat, or it was like something I could still do, so that also I think contributed. And
so were you, aside from that massive complication of alcohol becoming problematic, were you happy otherwise with the process and the surgery?
Yeah, I mean, I lost the weight, but when I drink alcohol, my inhibitions go down and I'll just start eating, and then I don't even think about what I'm eating. So I did gain most of the weight back. Yeah, so so the surgery it doesn't fix it all. You can gain the weight back. So.
So then have you done work both on food and alcohol as you've come through this whole journey?
Yes. I started with alcohol because that's the biggest issue for me. And then the weight loss, that's why I think when you can relieve one addiction, it can feed into your other addictions. And I was able to find an eating program and stick with it because I can set goals now and stick with them. And yeah, I've lost almost all the weight back again.
Yeah, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
That's awesome. So yeah, so that's interesting. So it wasn't necessarily the quick fix. I'm asking all these questions just because so many people come to me and ask about medications for alcohol, right? Like naltrexone and interviews and different medications. And I've interviewed some experts about that on this podcast. You can find those if you're curious, because I don't have any personal experience. But then the people who go and try the medications, they often find that like if they didn't fix the thinking and therefore the behavior and the desire, like the medications didn't actually work anyway.
Yeah.
Like you're without think it, right?
I tried naltrexone. I did, or Trexone. For me, it definitely, they say just continue to drink like normal and you don't feel, it's like drinking a glass of water, it really had no effect, but I just continued to drink and it didn't work. Naltrexone didn't work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's one of those things like where we're looking for something, and wouldn't it be great if it just, worked out of the gate, but sometimes it isn't those things. So anyway, let's get back to what did work for you. So you had this surgery, you noticed that even one drink was totally affecting you differently, even though you didn't know anything about the statistics, which of course there are now statistics and studies showing this link. But you didn't know that. You had this one drink, you're like, wow, this is affecting me differently. Some ways good, some ways bad. And then what happened?
Let's see. I would say the next real wake-up call for me was my aunt, who also had bariatric surgery, died. And at the funeral, I found out she died from alcoholism. And I had no idea even she drank alcohol that much or at all. So that was a real wake-up call for me. And I kind of freaked out, and I was able to stop for about 2 weeks, but that was it. It was, again, it was so ingrained in my entire life, my identity. I think the very first time at work, they said, we need to do some tastings. I was like, okay, I guess I'll not, I'll start drinking again. It just wasn't, I didn't have the right mindset. I know now. That continued for years, where I just kind of drank every day to relieve stress. And it just increased in quantity. It was the vicious cycle of what many people experience, vowing every morning to not drink today, going to work, being stressed, coming home, drinking anyway, falling asleep on the couch every night, waking up around, my time was 2:17 every night. Just asking for help into the universe, every night, having insomnia. This went on for years and years. I was never able to stop. Eventually, in December 2018, my position was eliminated, not from anything I did, but like just my whole team. But I took that opportunity to say, I'm going to figure out a way to stop drinking alcohol. And that's when a friend recommended your book.
Awesome. And so you read the book, and was that pretty easy for you after that, once you kind of saw some of the truths around alcohol, or was it still a journey? How did that go?
It still was a journey. I would say that was my biggest mind shift or catalyst. I just had no idea that this was happening to other people. Really, I really didn't even realize that, and that that alcohol was poison. That was a really, really interesting chapter for me too. I always thought alcohol was kind of good for me, especially wine, right? It's good for me. Even though deep down I knew it was hurting my liver, hurting my brain. I knew these things, but I couldn't put two and two together. When I read your book, also just the whole part about society, that it was, in my job, it's in everything. Once you stop and then you look at like TV shows and, social media, it's just everywhere you go. Alcohol is just kind of a norm, which I didn't quite, realize as well. So there were so many aha moments when I read the book. And then I had this girls' trip planned, though. I had kind of successfully moderated and reduced my consumption for about 2 months. And then I had this girls' trip planned to Ireland. And I didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to stop when I was in Ireland with my girlfriends, where we're going to pubs every day. So I just made a decision to drink in Ireland. But then when I got back, I couldn't even have 1 day or 2 days together, of not drinking. I couldn't do it. So I actually was thinking maybe I need rehab. I couldn't, but that was so expensive. I did find a program through Kaiser called IRP, and I did join that, which required AA. So I also went to AA. So I've tried a lot of different things. Anyway, the bottom line is it worked for me. I think the most important thing is I made the decision.
For sure.
Yeah. So.
And so pretty soon after Ireland, going to meetings, you felt like, okay, this is it. Like I made the decision. And then once the decision was made, it was better, easier.
I made recovery my life. It's a really, really big part of my life. Every audiobook, every movie I watched for months and months and months was recovery related. You know, I started just reading as much as I could, finding out as much as I could. I read your book multiple times. I've recommended it. I mean, I just was constantly doing recovery work, learning as much as I could about what is alcohol abuse disorder. How can, I think for me, knowledge is really important. I have to kind of learn and then I can apply it. Self-care is also a really big part of keeping me sober, and meditation, and then finding a higher power. I really do believe in a higher power now, and it's such a empowering part of my life. And I'm living such a, I didn't even know how great life could be until, you know, I just celebrated 1 year anniversary, and it's just, my life is amazing. The things that I wrote down in the beginning of my journal a year ago are actually happening. You know, not everything, but like things are happening and so great in my life. It's just, it's the best thing. And I just want everybody to experience this if they were in the, you know, in that despair, that there is hope. There really is hope. The mind can change. The brain is flexible. So, yeah.
So what are some of your, you know, besides This Naked Mind, what are some of your other favorite books or movies that really were highlights for you?
Okay. Well, I love to read, well, I love Holly Whitaker and the Hip Sobriety School, which is now Tempest. And she's got a book called Quit Like a Woman, which is great. I'm trying to think, you're putting me on the spot. Basically, I was reading a lot of memoirs too. Many just silly ones too, like Rob Lowe, and trying to think. I read a lot of books about the brain, meditation books. Sorry, I'm not. I should have my list out of all my books.
That's okay. I didn't really ask that. I was just wondering if there's any good resources you had for people. That's awesome. And then what about self-care? You know, you said that's really important. What sorts of things do you do that you would recommend?
For early sobriety, what I did was take a bath every night. I don't know if a lot of other people have done that, but that helped me. Let's see. Well, meditation. Meditation is key. I think that has had the biggest impact. I can see over this year journey that my mind is healing. And I think meditation, it takes a long time for your mind to heal. Or I think maybe everybody's different, but like it's still healing, like, and it's been a year. So, but meditation, you can really reach a sense of calm. And when you have panic or any triggers, that's a place that I can go to calm my mind and get centered. A lot of mindfulness techniques I've learned, grounding techniques just to breathe. I practice yoga almost every day. That's another really great technique. I got a lot of massages. I think that's what I think for every month I would celebrate with a massage. That's awesome. Kind of something I enjoy. So
that's great. Those are all so good. I love that so much. And then what about, you know, your social life and friends and, you know, the girls you went to Ireland with, like how did all that sort of, how has that been working?
That's a good question, because that was a really tough for me. I still haven't told everyone. I'm kind of going about it, you know, each person, but friends that I did drink with, I told right away. And they've all been really, really supportive, really. I do think there's a few times that I've had to make adjustments with my friendships. And that just can happen. I would say the toughest part of this last year was, you know, going through each holiday or each major event I've done everything now, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and I was the one that always hosted at my house. So that was hard for me because I was the one supplying all the wine. And so I think the first major holiday was Thanksgiving. And I just told my parents I couldn't host because I didn't feel comfortable enough to have alcohol in my house, and I didn't want to ask them not to drink. But then what I decided to do was host a Friendsgiving with all my new sober friends. And it was so much fun. I had like 10 people come, and it was a sober event. That was a really big transition for me, because I also invited my friends that continue to drink or are not part of any, sobriety friendship. And it was great. It was fine. I actually have so much more fun not drinking. I've been doing game nights with friends, and everything's been great. People are so supportive. I thought it was going to be a big problem. I really did, but it's not. You learn to get through all of these different events. And now alcohol is just not even something I think about. I kind of forget about it, actually, which is great. I'm just living my life. I don't even think about it. I don't have to avoid that aisle at the grocery store anymore, or I just don't even think about it. So
that's so awesome. That's wonderful. Yeah. I think that one of the things that, my husband and I noticed early on was that you have to take a little more intention to create the space to relax. And I think that's something that's really important for people, because if you are drinking, it's just like this. So I'm drinking coffee with caffeine now, but a few years ago, I decided, I'm going to see how it is to give up coffee and just drink decaf for a while. And I remember we got all this decaf, and we're like clockwork. Like, we make the coffee every morning, we drink it. And the first week or so, we're making it every morning, we're drinking the decaf. But then the second week, like, he'd forget one day and I wouldn't even notice. And then we'd be like, oh, did we even make coffee yesterday? And all of a sudden, because the addictive substance, the caffeine, wasn't in there, the habit of making coffee every day was no longer like top of mind. Like, it wasn't like this push, this rush, this do this thing, there wasn't something, almost external driving us in the nature of like, you need this thing because you have this physical, even if it's a small physical dependence, you have this physical dependence. So how that relates to alcohol is, one thing that I notice is that it is very easy when we were both drinking to be like, okay, after the kids are in bed, we're going to go sit out on our porch and play cards, or we're going to go sit out on our porch and spit a bottle of wine. And when we first stopped drinking, that just went away, because it was like we were being pulled there by the drinking. So you have to be really intentional about, okay, well, we're still going to just go sit on the porch, and maybe we'll have Topo Chico, or maybe we'll have iced tea, whatever it is, but we're going to go sit on the porch. And at first, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's comfortable. Like, I have so much else to do. But I think it's really important to like intentionally create those spaces to have fun or relax, because you can get just swept up in all this stuff. And that is one thing that I think anything that is, whether it's coffee that like slows you down to go to a coffee shop, or, you're going outside for your cigarette and you're spending time outside, you can still go outside and take a few deep breaths a few times a day. But when you're not smoking, your brain just says, oh, but we're busy, we'll do this one more thing, that can happen later. And so I think that intentional, like, no, I'm still going to go outside. I'm going to sit and I'm going to enjoy a few minutes outside a few times a day. I'm still going to do it. It takes a little bit more effort, I'd say, but it's really worth it. And I like that you're highlighting that, because I think it's so important. I think it can fall off so easily. And you can be a work hard, play hard person, and then you take away the alcohol, and all of a sudden you're just a work hard person. This was me for a few years. And I was like, oh my gosh, just the work hard part, this is awful. And it wasn't that the alcohol was making those moments anything spectacular. In fact, I have much more spectacular moments without the alcohol. It was just that it was acting as the trigger, right? Like, it was acting as the trigger to go and sit. And now recently we went into our backyard and we're just like sitting there in some chairs and talking. And it's just one of those things, like, if you do it, it's just as great, if not better, but you don't have that impetus to do it because you aren't having that physical, like, ooh, I need to make my coffee, right? Like, it's just not happening. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, totally.
I think. That's so good. So, what else are your, like, what else were some of the things that you know, thoughts that you think, or things that you really recommend, or, you know, ways that like have been really helpful to you for people who are listening, just kind of to stay the course, and especially not to beat yourself up, as the road is not, we think it's just this really clean road of like, and it's never that way. It's always a bumpy road. So
I'd say having a really strong support group and friends that you can talk to, and is really important for me, because yeah, it's been you know, I think it will get easier for the second year because I've already done like a whole year of different things. But each month I had hurdles to get over, because different things were being addressed. I remember getting so angry one day, a few months after getting sober. I was like, how am I going to go on a date? You know, there's no way I'm going to go on a date. I'm single. So I'm like, that, you know, I need to have a glass of wine or a drink and meet at a bar. You know, that's how you have a date. And I couldn't think about it, but I had, you know, and then I, you know, there's a couple chapters in your book, but like I had to read those again. And now I just go, I'm the lucky one, you know, and I'm lucky. I get to be sober on a date. And the man I'm going to look for is going to be hopefully sober. I mean, that's what I'm going to, but I mean, we're going to have a better relationship, which won't have alcohol in it at all. I'm going to make better decisions. I'm going to be more true when I'm on this first date. You know, it's just going to be a better experience. So, I actually say to myself, I'm lucky that I have had all of these experiences, because I do believe you can only, I think somebody said it, you know, you can only really see the light after you've gone through the darkness. So it's kind of true. Like now I can see how wonderful life is, and what, you know, what my life is like now is so different that I just say, what would my advice be? Stick with it. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be hard every day. It can be hard, but if you stick with it, eventually it does get easier, and you don't even think about alcohol. It's just not something that I think about anymore. So
that's so great. Yeah, I think that's the only way that you can really fail, is not by drinking again, but just not sticking with it, not kind of picking yourself up and dusting yourself off. You know, like if you stick with it, like it will come. It just might not be yet, and it might not be time yet. There might be more things you need to learn or observe so that it's really sticks and is peaceful. And so I think that's great. That's really great. That's awesome. So Ruby, let me ask you the question that I kind of asked at the end of these, which is, you know, if you're going to go back and talk to yourself, you know, the one that was struggling and maybe even really becoming more addicted after the surgery, what would you tell her about what life is like now?
Life now, Ruby, is wonderful. I mean, I still have problems, but now I know how to deal with them without alcohol. My vision board is coming true. Things like meditation every day, yoga every day, you know, get to my goal weight. All of these things are possible because I'm not drinking. And that was the big stumbling block in my life, was the drinking. And once that's gone, I'm free from that. Now, I really see the possibilities are endless. I am doing so many amazing things. I'm learning to be a life coach, and I want to help people. I have found a purpose in life. I think I was just living in this every single day cycle of never setting goals, getting out of and I'm out of that cycle, that negative cycle. And now I can help people. I want people to learn about the experience that I've gone through, and hopefully I can help inspire and change others' lives as well. And I'm just thrilled with life. And I want to say one more thing. My son is really proud of me. And that, oh my gosh, I'm almost going to cry, because that was the hardest part, was being a mom and knowing that he was seeing me drinking too much and I wasn't being a really good mom. And now I can be a really good role model for him. And he actually has said that to me on several occasions, and he's so proud of me. So yeah.
Well, I love that
Yeah.
so much. Oh, great. Well, this has been great. And it's so great to get to know you better as you're going through the certification and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Ruby. I really enjoyed hearing your story.
Okay. Thanks, Annie. Thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, it's Annie Grace. I want to tell you about the most important book that I never wrote. And I mean that. This is This Naked Life. It's 48 true stories of people finding freedom from alcohol, and it's so inspiring. It's our stories, as you know from this podcast, that truly change us, that revolutionize what we believe is possible for ourselves. So it's This Naked Life. You can find it on Amazon or check it out online. Even download it 100% free at nakedlifestories.com. And every single copy that you buy, all the proceeds are 100% committed to keeping the alcohol experiment forever free for anybody who needs it. So check it out. It's such an inspirational book. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.